other people in the community can see it later. And the recording will be available for you to recap it also later in the community if there's something that you missed or that you would like to go through again. Many people ask us for this because they have some time constraints and they cannot join, so we are happy to do so. Today we have Eli with us. I will present him a bit better in a second. First of all, and to all of you still joining, I just wanted to say, in case this is your first webinar in the community, I want to tell you that we always try to bring up these topics that are related to the stage that you are currently at as entrepreneurs, that are current with comments and insights that you share with us. So feel free to also reach us and let us know if there's any specific topic you would like to go a little bit deeper on, etc. And today we have Eli Gescheit. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it very well.
That's good.
Okay, thank you. That's very kind. He's a top-class entrepreneur, very, very experienced, and as a startup expert, advisor for many programs. Very, very experienced. I'm sure you were able to see in our article where we launched it. You have a small bio there that you can look for. Eli will share with us today the insights and the fundamentals of how to get your product design efficient in an efficient way. So he brings us a session to understand of how not to get lost while in this process of designing process, and how to get focused. Very, very strategic comments. I'm very excited about this topic that Eli, in a very, very generous way, wanted to share with us. Do make questions, do interact via the chat. I will be here with Athia. We will be recording and logging your questions and your comments so that we can handle them to Eli after. And if you want to speak, your microphone is muted, so do unmute yourself first. I'm very, very happy to have you here joining. Send me a chat if you need anything. And without any further ado, I will handle the session to you, Eli. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Alexandra. So hi, everyone. First of all, I'm happy to be here and share insights that I have from experiences that I have in different industries. A bit about my background. I come from a quite diverse background. I started in medical devices, and then I was a part of a startup, an Israeli startup that was developing an insulin pump for diabetics, and then it was acquired by Roche, and then did more corporate work and innovation management at Roche, and then started my own startup in a different field in mobile and cloud, and started working with other companies from different industries, robotics to social cameras, very interesting. And even in 2 years ago, I led the startup programs at AWS, so I met a lot of startups and venture capitals in EMEA that were trying to build their products on the platform. And today I work with, again, with startups and a lot of early stage entrepreneurs that are starting to build their products, trying to get their MVP out there. And I understand this is the main stage that most of you are in. I'm gonna have this product ideation session as a mini workshop. So we'll have, after each session, we'll have a pause of around 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, not to be too, not to get too much quiet and pause sessions. But after that, you can take all the things that we've done here, and since it's recorded, you can go again and do this workshop with your teams and share this insights and do this workshop with your teams and take the time to build your product with the ZIZO method again. So if you have any questions, I don't see your chat, but Alexandra will will help me with that. So I'm going to start by saying that building products from scratch is really, really hard. It's tough, and a lot of people, before they come to actually do it, don't understand how tough it is to sit in front of a blank paper, even if everything is in your head, and then start building this thing that you want to build and solve the problem that you want to solve. A lot of the startups that I work with get to the part that they don't know, either they don't know where to start to build a product, or they get stuck in the middle of the process. So they either get stuck in coding, where they either get stuck in the high level strategic, building the business model, but don't zoom in to really actually building the things that they want in order to test it and do a lean process in order to really get some insights from your users. So this is why I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they get lost in the process. And you see this when you feel you're not progressing. So when you feel I'm not fast enough, or when you see a lot of, you read articles and you see a lot of products and say, I have a lot of competitors, but I'm not there, I'm not moving fast enough. So this is a part of the reason is that you get lost in the process and you're not focused enough to in the right layer or design layer, as we will see in a later stage. So product leaders and entrepreneurs, you have to think both strategically and in detail. So what I mean here is that if you're starting a startup, you're in charge of so many things. You're in charge of the tiniest thing, from the color of your interface, where the buttons are, but also you're in charge of the flow, of understanding your users, of going backwards, understanding their problems, even understanding your own team that is maybe not aligned on the things that you're building, and also going even higher, in a higher level, about your market, your business strategy. But here we're going to focus on the product. So in order to move fast and progress, I think that leaders and entrepreneurs need to think both strategically, but also deal with the execution itself and make sure they switch between the modes, okay? But this is really, really hard to do. It's about building products from scratch. So you need to make sure that you are focusing on the right thing and you're moving and feel both in control and experience on all levels. So here what you need is a framework, okay? And this is the ZIZO. The zoom in and zoom out is a framework for you to work with in order to make sure that you are switching and making sure that you are thinking both strategically, zooming in, diving deep into the details, but zooming out then strategically, and repeat it all the time. But I think it's more than that. I think it's a mindset. If you are in the mindset of, if you are a developer, it's very, very likely, as I saw, that you will like to write code, and you are dealing with the details, with writing the code. If you are a business person and you have no idea how to write code, it's very likely that you will love to do the business models, or would love to be in your sweet spot. So the mindset is coming into developing your product with this mindset of zooming in and zooming out all the time. And the two modes that I like to talk, and this is about teams and allowing your teams to have those two modes, is scrappy mode and focus mode. Scrappy mode means brainstorming, thinking bold ideas, going with them and thinking on things that might not be possible to execute really, really fast, but might lead you to build on top of them. But then to switch mode after you brainstormed and focus on one thing that you think your team should do, is focus how you're going to do it. Zoom in and focus on the tiniest things. How do you make this work? What does the interface look like? What are the actions that your user will have to do, etc. So let's go into the framework itself of product ideation and how to design this. So I like to think of the ZIZO methodology in 3 layers. The first one is the highest level. It's the flow layer. What it means, the flow layer is actually what the user experience looks like or feel like for the user. And we'll see what it is. In a nutshell, it's the different steps that your users will have when they interact with your product or process or service, whatever it is, but it's a very simple high-level view of your user experience. Then the second layer, design layer, is the interface. This is how it will look like. What is actually the interface that they will interact with in each step of the flow. So it's actually an extension of the flow, okay? And this means, for those of you who have done wireframing or UX or designing anything like that, this is what it's about. But then we're diving into the next layer, which is the action layer. And this means in each interface, what are the actual actions that each user will have to invest to use your product, okay? And so it's another layer of thinking of what your user will do in each interface. Now, this is not a linear process, okay? This design process is not linear. So you can either, if you're comfortable with starting from the interface layer, do that and go back. But the main idea of the zooming in and zooming out is switching between those layers. So we'll start, just because I like to give it as a rule of thumb, to start with the flow because that's the easiest one. So we'll start with this, okay? I'm going to give an example for Uber because everyone knows Uber, and it's a simple navigation and calling taxi app. But if you know anything, if you're using Lyft or Get Taxi, whatever it is, the main thing is understanding the concept of zooming in and zooming out and what each level is all about. So let's start. What is the design layer flow? So it's an algorithm. It's a flow chart of the different steps that the user does in your application. So you can do it either visually with a flow chart, and you don't have to be very specific about flowchart rules and whatever. You can just take boxes for simplicity, or you can do it, if you're more comfortable with this, with a list, okay? Just 1, 1.1, 1.2, whatever it is, just to make it clear. So let's start by viewing like an example of Uber. So first step is the user opens the app. Then the user signs up. The next step is the user gets to the main screen, okay? And then he has 2 options in the main screen, okay? The user browses the map, or the user searches a destination. In both of them, the user tries to get some kind of a destination to pick, okay? And then the user have a question, okay? Request. Did the user find the destination, either in each way? If he doesn't find the right destination, he goes back in the flow to the main screen, and he has to do this all over again, okay? If he does find the right destination, then he goes to a user choosing the right type. Okay, and then you have another question. Okay, if the user confirmed the right or not. If he didn't, he goes back. If he did, he has another step. Okay, so this is a very, very general idea of what it looks like. Okay, and it's very it seems very similar in different applications, especially in the sign-up process, but you can really extend each flow to subflow later on in the process, because when we're talking about of registration, you can have a more detailed user flow and designing the experience in such a way that you will have such a flow chart specifically for the registration. Okay. So now, before we move on to the next layer, I just want to have 5 minutes for you to think of your own venture, your own application, and try to think of what your higher level flow layer looks like. If you're having difficulties to start, just start with your registration. Okay. We're not gonna have a discussion, a full discussion here because we're online. But if you want to share anything and go like live and show it in your paper, just write it in your chat and do that. Okay. So let's take 5 minutes, and all of you can have the design flow layer done. 'If you have any questions, also feel free to write it down or say it out loud. Two more minutes. Okay. Cool. So, does anyone want to share his flow layer? Either in, like, you can just show it by sharing your screen or just telling about it. Anyone? You can see your names.
Hello.
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, hello. I don't know if I really get it, but more or less, I think it's, one of my products is a questionnaire, okay? It's a corporative resilience questionnaire. Then I more or less did the flowchart. The user signs up for the questionnaire, accepts the conditions, reads the question, reflects on the question, answers the question, then it can review answer, can make changes, yes or no. If it makes changes, then change the answer. If no, sends the questionnaire. And after that, I don't know how to explain that, it sends finally the questionnaire or chooses not to send it.
So
It's too complicated, maybe.
yeah. Do you want? Do you have it written down?
Yes, but I made changes at the same time that, that I was, because
Okay.
I kept thinking new, you know, like two choices every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, this is, I think that a questionnaire or a form is a very classic example of a
Yeah.
flowchart-like experience. There are two things that I think you should maybe do. Try to think also about more specific language for your flow. Okay, this will make the decisions and the flow layer. You will have a lot of things to think about when you try to understand if the language is right or, no, or wrong. The second thing is, I don't know, do you have a team with you?
No, no.
Okay.
No.
So you can do it either with people that you consult with or advisors or maybe your peers. It's a good idea to do it with your peers online on the platform. Try to give them the chance to do this alone and then compare the flow. See if they know of course, if they know your venture. And see how other people look at your flow and how you think about your flow. This is good. It's a good, also a good test to see if people understand the high level view of your design, of your product design.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Cool. So I think, thanks, Gloria, first of all.
Okay. Thanks.
So I think we'll move to the next layer, okay? And now, what we're doing is we're actually zooming in, okay? We're zooming in to the next layer. What it means is that we are taking each step in the flow layer and we're diving deep and understanding what the interface would look like in each step. So this is how an example of the interface layer and how it looks like. If we had the user signs up, now we're going to think visually as designers. However, I want to say that a lot of people that I meet, a lot of founders, people are starting, building applications, are saying, I'm not a designer, I need to hire a designer. You don't have to hire a designer. Just take a pen and paper, how icons look like, how you've seen, many applications. You just need to draw your wireframes. Okay, and these are wireframes. If any of you haven't had the chance to meet this term or write wireframes, but the difference is that you're extending the step of user signing up, and you can take each step in the flow layer. If we go back, like user search of destination, we will see that, and develop it into a real wireframe, real design. So here's an example. User signs up. So we have a screen with a sign up with email or sign up with Facebook, and then what happens if I sign up with email? I have another screen. I need to have a first name, last name, email, and then click submit. Or if I have a sign up with Facebook, so the user goes directly to the main screen. Okay, so these are the channels and how it will look like. Another example is user gets to the main screen. So what is there on the main screen? So in this case, we have a search box and and some text in it, which might be important, might not be important. There's a map with different annotations, like a neutral ride, map, a driver ride. And you can think of different things, such as, do I have an icon that I can, or a button that I can click search in? Or do I just do it with the keyboard? So it looks very simplified, but there are a lot of questions that you can ask and think about your user experience by simply drawing a wireframe or the interface layer of this specific step in your flow. Now, you might be asking, okay, so why zooming in and zooming out? So the whole idea is, after you do that, is going back to your flow and asking yourself and your team, do I really have to change something? For instance, if we see that people are not getting into, let's say, choosing the right type, they're not confirming the right. Is there something in the interface layer that we can do or change? Or should we go and zoom out to this experience, to the flow layer, and change something there? Okay? Or do we need something to change, something to be changed in the interface layer? So these are two different layers, but connected to each other. But the idea is, after you do the interface layer, to go back and think about your flow layer, the high-level layer, and then go zoom in right after and implement the things that you are learning from viewing the high-level flow layer. So now we're going to have each of you pick one or two boxes from your flow that you've done early on. It's very quick, but choose one or two things and develop it into an interface. Okay, take 5 minutes and just do the wireframes. Build the interaction, build the interface for the specific step. Okay, so I'm taking 4 or 5 minutes, and I'll tell you when to stop. Again, questions if you have, just chat or just say it out loud. Go ahead, 5 minutes. Let's take 2 more minutes. Cool. And we're done. Anyone wants to share his screen and or the video and show his wireframes? I know this might have not been prepared to share a screen or video, but if you do want to share and get your work out there, anyone? No, yes. Okay. I understand it's a no, it's a quiet room. Cool.
That was me.
So,
I think you have to pick someone.
I have to pick someone? Is it okay? It's not too intrusive? Maybe Rafa is willing to share. Or just tell about the experience. If it was easy, if it was difficult. Rafa? Juliet, maybe?
Well, I already have a mock-up that I worked on like a couple of days ago for an application, and my friend designer we did a very quick like mock-up.
Okay.
So
And have you done? So my question is there a difference between the thing that you drew today from what your friend designer has done?
you know what happened is like I did the wireframe and then she just put the images.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cool. So have you done a flow layer for this, or have you done?
I haven't done the whole flow because we were not really there. What I was just trying is like to show the concept, but I have like the the main screen and then the first page you see with a search box and 2 other screens basically.
Yeah. So it was easier for you to start with like doing the wireframes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I think this is a great point about this method being adapted to everyone, in the sense that if it's easier for you to just draw some wireframes and then go and build a flow, it's perfectly fine. A lot of people are getting stuck because they think that you really need to understand what's the whole user experience first and then go and build. And it's not, if you've read, and I really recommend reading The Lean Startup from Eric Ries. It's all about iteration and learning from the things that you're doing. So if you're starting with the wireframes, it will help you build a bit more your user experience in the higher level. And then zooming in back and change or building another interface and going back and zooming out to build another layer of your flow. So this is really not a linear process. You can change and zoom in and zoom out all the time. Now, one thing that is important, I really like pen and paper here, but you can use a lot of tools like Balsamic, which is great for wireframing. You can use Photoshop, Illustrator if you're comfortable with it, and even PowerPoint is great for that. And there are all sorts of extensions to play with icons and things like that. And later on, if you want to test it, and I really recommend testing it, you can use things like applications like Envision. And a lot of people are thinking Envision is an application that you can really create an experience, a visual experience of your app. And a lot of people are waiting until they have all the designer assets to put it in Envision and test it. And I say, no, go with the things that you're drawing right now. Just take a photo, upload it to Envision, and build the interaction, the application mock-up with the things that with the wireframes. So I've done it, I've tested it on different occasions, and it's really, really recommended because it gives its minimum investment in terms of the design, but maximum insights that you have when people are actually using it and you can view it.
Well, but, so, because for me, that's, I thought, okay, I need to do this thing for this application. I'm going to go on Envision. And then that's where actually I got lost because I'm not like a designer or programmer myself. And I just found that just to understand how to use Envision and then get up to speed. And then, I just got lost in that. And I just kind of called my friend and say, okay, can you do a visual mockup? It's going to be much faster for me than me trying to figure out for 3 days how to use that software.
Cool. So this is perfectly fine, I think. I mean, you have to do what will make you faster. We're talking about ZIZO here. So I think something that I would recommend doing is after you have the mock-ups that you have with the designers, go back and see how you build a flow and see how it aligns or what you can learn from each thing. Cool. So thanks, Juliet. And now we're zooming in to the next layer, okay? And what is the next layer? The next layer is the action layer. And this is a layer, I think, a design layer that a lot of people are forgetting, or it's embedded within the interface layer with a lot of people. And it's really putting focus on what are the actions that my user, my potential user, will have to invest in each interface. I'm going to tell a story about, after this, about an application that I started and what we had there. And we ignored the action layer, and this is how I got to really deal with user actions. But we're going back to the Uber example, and here we had the step in a flow. The user signs up. If we zoom out, this is the first step, and then we built the interface layer. And what you can see are boxes next to each interface, and this is the action layer. So what I have here is in each interface, I want to write next to it, what are the actions that the user has to take? So, and the first one is choose sign up method, and the number of actions is on the left, the top left. So it's one action. I need to just click one button and I'm going to the next interface. But then I have the Uber sign up with the email. So I have enter personal details plus submit. If I sum it up, I have 4 different actions that the user has to invest in this interface only. So it's entering the first name, the last name, the email, and pressing submit. And there are a lot of questions in such a simple interface. And it's, do we need all those fields? Can we optimize it? Can we reduce? What happens if we reduce or not reducing the number of actions? And here, there are no right answers but A/B testing. So we need to create a hypothesis and then test each and every one of them. But this is specifically for focusing on the actions to bring those questions and then test them. Then if we go to the next thing, we had the search box. So searching a destination and using text, and then you have to enter, to press some button to have the search implemented or in action. And browsing a map, for instance, and choosing a destination could be a loop action layer. So a lot of people will have to scroll and swipe on the map and looking and zooming in and zooming out. So it's a multiple action layer. And you have to understand if this is the right action layer that you want to build in this specific interface, or you want to change it or optimize it. Specifically, I'm going to tell you that at Mobifile, the startup that I started with my team, we had a problem that we built a registration which was really stuck on the action layer. So in a nutshell, the application, what it did, we connected different applications that stored documents such as Gmail and Dropbox and Google Drive, and we allowed in one interface to have a quick search of documents across all apps. But what we found out that in the registration phase, a lot of people didn't go through the registration. So we went back and we checked the action layer and checked what actually causes people not to go through the registration and really convert to using the actual application. What we found out is that the initial process included every user to connect each API. So in Gmail, I had to enter my first name, my last name, my email, and my name, and then press OK. And then it redirected to a third party, to a Google screen that I had to consent. And after I consent one application, I went back and actually had to do the whole process over again. So if I talk about connecting 3 applications, for instance, we had a minimum of 12 actions per user just to register to the application. And then what we did, we went back and understood that if the application is already installed in the device, we can use the information that we have in the device, especially in Android, and minimizing the action layer into two actions per connection. So from 12 actions in one interface in the registration, we minimized it to 6, and we saw really big change in the conversion rate, and people started seeing what the application is all about and were not stuck over there. So what I want to do is, we're not going to have the last session of the exercise, but I want to move on to talk about something else, which is, how do you lead a team by using the zoom in and zoom out? How do you create this mindset with your team? So I think this is something that you have to think of when you're developing your product with your team. It's not only about you switching and moving between and zooming in and zooming out. It's about the whole team being aware of the different layers and thinking in different perspective about your product all the time, to challenge each other in each layer. And as I said, the most common thing that I see is teams that get stuck in one layer. So teams that are either starting to code right away and don't think about the flow, about the user experience. These are usually technical teams that I see, and also teams that they avoid really going into execution and stay on the high level of either user experience or business-oriented layers, and they talk about the business models and how it's going to, but they don't create the mock-up, they don't create the MVP, and there's nothing to show. And for really good feedback, you can see if you're pitching your startup to investors. A lot of the high level, the people that get stuck on the flow layer will get the feedback from investor, okay, go in and build something and we want to see traction. And then you need to go back to this investor and show him what you've done. And a lot of the teams that get stuck on the maybe action layer, interface layer, they write code and build things without seeing the zooming out and seeing the more strategic layer, is that the investors will ask, okay, what's the value for the user? Do you have users that, for instance, why will they share it with their friends? What's the distribution model here? A lot of things that will challenge you to think, to go back and think and zoom out and think in a different way. So the ZIZO method, I want, and my purpose is to prepare you prior to going to this investor and think on all levels. Think of the different levels so you'll be prepared to all of those challenges that you'll face. So what can you do to make this work with your teams? So here are like different things that you can do. One is define ZIZO teams. So if you have like 12 people, define 3 people that are thinking about the flow, 3 people that are thinking about the interface, and 3 people that are thinking about the actions, okay? And they are really focused on one action, but sharing the things that they're focusing on with the rest of the team and challenging each other, okay? The second one is running a ZIZO Slack channel, okay? So you have a specific place that you can think in different layers and different perspectives. You can add it to your stand-ups if you're doing any with your teams. And you can also enter looking at ZIZO in your leadership principles, okay? We're thinking in different perspectives. We're zooming in and zooming out all the time. It's a way, it's a mindset in our team. And of course you can combine them all. But the idea is to find out mechanisms that will help your team to think in both strategically and in detail. And it doesn't matter if you are referring to the development team, or your biz dev team, or your product team. So it's everyone can share and think of the different layers and can challenge each other. And I think that a lot of people will tend to, give the interface layer to the UX people. Don't do that. Challenge the UX people by giving it to maybe a software developer. And the final thing is doing workshops like this, okay? Getting everyone into one room, getting a large board, and try to have people do a hands-on experience by going up to the board, drawing the flow layer, drawing the interface layer, and then doing the actions, and maybe calling different people to complement what others did. That's it. And I wanted to connect it to bridges, especially for billions. But it actually, I think that looking at different perspective as a mindset also build bridges. And I understand you are connecting a lot with corporates and a lot with partners and other startups in different cultures around the globe, because it's an online platform. So a lot of the zooming in and zooming out exercise is about thinking in different perspectives. And I think that people especially if you come from a corporate culture, you think differently about those layers than if you are in a startup. And challenging yourself to do this thing also with a corporate partner will help both of you align on the same language, on the same things that you're working on. That's it. I'm adding here my email. Don't abuse it, use it. There's an article on Medium that really give all the examples that I gave here in more detail. And later on we will share a coupon for online workshop that I did also on Udemy. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We started 12, we're 8. That's a good chart rate.
Thank you so much, Eli. Now, if you have questions or comments, if there's anything that you feel blocked at, now is the time to, Eli is still here, so it's the time to share those comments. For me personally, I think this is always a big challenge, either if you're starting and you're still by yourself, or you don't have co-founders, or you don't have mentors, etc. You're starting, or if you're already in a team. It's always a challenge of understanding when it's the right moment to join these kind of sessions, to ask for advisors, for external people, to work with you and co-create and help you have this diversion capacity of not only understanding what are the details that you are missing on your path or that you would like to work with, and then zooming out and having this overall perspective to be critical about the whole experience. So I think this is very, very accurate. I don't know if anyone would like to share a question. I see Gloria, you're unmuted.
Well, just a comment. It really was very enlightening for me, this question of zooming in and out. When I draw the actual questionnaire, I did the pictures, then it was easier for me to do the flowchart. But at the beginning, it was very difficult to get a flowchart before drawing the actual pictures. I don't know if it's everyone the same or not, but it happened to me. Then thank you. Thank you for that zooming in and out. It worked for me.
Sure. I'm really, really happy to hear this.
Thanks.
I mean, for me, if I think if it only helps you, even in one part, to get things done and progress, I'm really happy.
Thank you.
I have one question. Hi everyone. I was wondering. I am starting like an idea. I have a co-founder, and actually, what I'm doubting is how much time would you recommend to keep in each phase? Because I mean, it has happened to me in other startup experiences that we can spend too much time in one stage. So in this sense, I wonder what is maybe not the ideal, but a way that worked for you. Maybe iterating fast, not that fast. I don't know.
How do you define a phase? What do you mean, the different
I mean,
layers?
in the different layers.
Okay, so I think the worst thing that you can do, I'll start with the worst thing, is defining the specific phase that you are focusing on, let's say, for a month or for 2 months. It's too long. I think that you need to be open. I would use sprints, and you can have either sprints of a week, I think, but I wouldn't limit it to one layer. So I wouldn't limit it to everyone, okay, you're doing only flow, okay? You're only, because some people in your team, but you have to, I'm gonna say that you have to try it with your teams, because it might work. People will feel comfortable. Maybe one person will feel comfortable with doing the flow, and one person will feel comfortable with doing the interface. So you need to understand what your team, how your team, if it feels comfortable with either drawing or doing the flows or thinking about the actions. But don't take the time for a month or 2 months. It has to be like several days, 2-3 days to think about or do maybe one layer, and then iterate on other layers. But have everything in one discussion, because you have to zoom in and zoom out all the time. So what I would do is I would get everyone and do a workshop and try to understand what's the most challenging thing for them, and then start having this creating process, creating exercise with all of them. If you have to do a sprint on one flow, try that. But I like to keep everything open for everyone to work on any flow that they want and then share, because it challenges and each person thinks differently. Does it answer your question? Or?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? I know we had several messages on people that could not attend, so people that are going to have a look at the recording later, so probably you will be notified later as well, Eli. I also don't want to take too much time from everyone. I don't know if you want to leave a last question here. I have a comment from Asia. Thank you so much. Okay. If there's no one else, I assume there are no more questions for now. So I don't know if you have any final comment, Eli, or anything that you would like to share.
I think that the last thing is don't overcomplicate things. I think this is a very these are just this is a framework that is here to help you. So again, try to use it in a lean way, and be very easy on yourself. If you're getting stuck in an interface, go to another one. And use the platform that you have also to ask and challenge other people to help you with the other layers. I hope you enjoyed it and it will be valuable for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of this with you and for your time today. Thank you so much. We will be happy to have you also in the community and seeing everyone's comments. I really want to thank all of you for being here today. As I was mentioning earlier, and as always, we will be sharing the recording where you will be able to get in contact with Eli as well. And Eli, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the session today. We'll keep in contact via the community, and if anyone of you wants to share something with Eli later, you can do it directly, or you can use us for that. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.